that in a second. So, okay, I'm live on Facebook. I am live on Insta. Perfection. Okay, and this is a situation. But it's so hot. It's like a million degrees in San Diego right now. I can't lie. It's like 95 degrees. So I'm just working with what we're working with. And I'm happy that you guys get to see my birth of Venus. So today I want to talk about agoraphobia. And like agoraphobia is something that when you say the words to someone, when you say like agoraphobia, I'm agoraphobic, honestly, people like don't know what it is. But I have to tell you guys, it's the number one phobia people have. The number one phobia people have over any other phobias, over public speaking, over like putting yourself out there, over anything. The number one fear people, I mean, these are all like self-report studies, so we have to keep that in mind in psychology, but people report having fear of like leaving the house, fear of crowds, fear of driving. That's a big one. And that's one that I'm like still working on, the fear of driving. I drive every day, but I can't lie, it is a little bit like difficult for me to, I mean, I'll do it. I'm not like before. So I do want to get into my story for a moment. My story with agoraphobia is super interesting. To be honest, that like my agoraphobia, me dealing with not being able to leave the house very easily. I had it the worst when I worked at a job outside my house. So in fact, I had to leave my house every day, but I would just like come straight home, and I would wake up like very late at night, maybe like 3 or 4 in the morning, thinking about having to drive to work. I would get off work around 3 p.m. and I would start thinking around like 11 or 12 how I was like scared to drive home. So I feel that this is something a lot more of us deal with than we talk about, and I just want to talk about it. So I used to hang out with people all the time. Like I hung out with people every single day for maybe like 5 or 6 years. And then maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I just felt exhausted from it. Like, I don't know, it was a lot of different things. It's a lot of like having a stressful situation in public, having several stressful situations in public. A big part of agoraphobia, I'm just going to talk about like the reasons people get it, and then we'll get into the solutions in a minute. A big reason that people get it is just like an issue with control. Agoraphobia is like fear of leaving the house is like the number one thing that can come from trauma, because you're just like scared of the outside world. You know what I mean? It's just, it doesn't totally not make sense to me. You know what I mean? If you had a lot of scary experiences in public or embarrassing experience, that's a big one. Humiliation of any kind is a big trigger for staying in more. So I honestly got a job from home before I did anything with my business. This was like 2014, 15. I got a job from home solely because I was anxious and I didn't want to leave it anymore. So it's so interesting what we do, how we create these walls, and we keep creating the walls, and we're thinking that we're safe. And then it's like a few years later and you realize that you're like in this castle and you have this big wall and then a moat and then an army, and like it's impossible to like, well, it feels impossible to get out of that situation. So let's talk about how to do that. And yeah, like you're saying, I don't like crowds. I think there's a difference between the preference and the inability, the physical inability to do it, because like you don't like crowds, but I'm sure like we had an amazing time at the event this week at BBD. So it's like you will do it for your own self. You know what I mean? You'll go out in crowds. Like a lot of, like when I was agoraphobic, I didn't want to like go to family things. I didn't want to go, like family things was a big one. I didn't want to go to family things. I didn't really hang out with my friends. It's interesting because the desire is there. You want to do those things. Like you want to go out, but you just feel like it's too much for you. That's exactly what it is. You just feel like it's just too much for you to handle, so you don't do it. So I think that with something like this, everyone's experience with it is going to be totally different. Like the reason why you stopped going out could be because of trauma, could be because of situations in public. It could just be exhaustion with like putting yourself out there all the time, because you have to keep in mind that like everybody experiences anxiety and everybody experiences depression. People don't stay there. You know what I mean? When something terrible happens in your life, you get sad, and that's a synonym for depression, but you just don't stay there. Agoraphobia is getting depressed and anxious and staying there. And like I said, I think it's so much more common than we think. I just think that no one wants to talk about it because in our culture, in especially like America, in our culture, it's so like valued. It's valued to be busy. It's valued to, hey Jessica, it's valued to go out. It's like, what are you doing tonight? And it's like, what am I doing tonight? It's 8:30 p.m. Like, what do you think I'm doing tonight? I'm chilling. So it's like there's such a push to be social, go out. And I think it's so interesting that in America, there's this big push to go out, because in other countries, like in Europe, I can only speak for Europe, everybody goes out all the time. And it's not even like that big of a deal like it is here, like the pressure. So there's just like this pressure in our society to be social, this pressure in our society to be busy. It goes back to like the busiest, successful, limiting belief that a lot of us have and a lot of us get from just growing up. So how this affected my life was so serious. I mean, it affected my marriage at the time. I wouldn't say it was the cause for my divorce, because my ex had his own things. It affected my marriage. It affected like all of my friendships. It affected my business so much, because I mean, posting is like a little mini version of going in public. And I just like, you feel the feeling like you just can't. I just can't. Like, I can't do this. And once you get that thought in your head, and then once you get on that pattern, like once you get to like, I can't do this, and then it's like every day, it's like, I can't do this. It's like, and then once you get to like your boyfriend or your spouse or your girlfriend or whatever saying like, I just want to leave, I just want to do this, it becomes like so tense, everything in life. And it's like the 100% truth that you know that you're in trouble is when you, so the 100% truth of knowing you're in trouble is when you actually want to go out. When you want to go out and you feel like I can't, that is when you know that you kind of crossed over between maybe going through a hard time and like kind of sticking in the agoraphobia. So I do want to point out that if you have ever felt this way, you're not weird and you're not crazy. It's so common, and you're good. So let's get into the solutions. The number one thing that is causing this basically is like root chakra stuff, safety stuff. So one is like, how can you cultivate safety inside of you? The number one thing to know is that if you can feel safe inside your heart, you can feel safe anywhere. So it's like, how can you start to cultivate safety inside your heart? You can do root chakra work. You can literally do limiting belief work, anything like that. It's like cultivating that safety within you, and further, being around people that are safe to be around. That's the biggest thing, because how the heck are you gonna like start going out in public when the people that you go out in public with are so like humiliating to you, spiritually abusive to you, emotionally abusive. And I don't mean to laugh about that. I'm just saying I've never used the word spiritually abusive. Sorry guys. But because what I found is like I was hanging out with like my spouse at the time was like very emotionally abusive. My friends were like very overbearing, and that does come in to boundaries. That does have to do with boundaries. However, if you're choosing to go out in public all the time with these people that are so freaking stressful. So that's like a big thing. Let yourself be around safe people. Allow yourself to be around safe people. Allow yourself to search out safe people. And while that can feel impossible sometimes, I truly feel that with something like agoraphobia, you get to a point where you just can't do it anymore. You just can't do it anymore. So I went to an event this week. It was freaking amazing. And it was like such a safe space. And I really think that we don't value safe spaces enough. I mean, I'm not trying to speak for everybody. If you do, then I'm so freaking happy for you. But my point is that I think that we get into this place where we think we have to do it all on our own. We have to do it all on our own. We have to handle ourselves, handle our emotions, blah, blah, blah. And we do to an extent, but it's like you're allowed to want safety with other people. And the way to like quantum leap that and get to that safe place is to put yourself around safe people. I'm telling you. Like, number one, cultivate safety within your heart by maybe doing some root chakra work, doing work around what's unsafe, because you really could be pushing up against a belief that when you start to flesh it out, doesn't make much sense. So if you're thinking like with driving, if you're nervous about driving, think of your experience with driving and how 99.9% of the time you always get to where you're going. You have to kind of challenge those things. So feeling safe, but then further, and this is hard for someone that's deep in that place, is to seek out safe places. And the hardest part about this is that no place feels safe in that place, right? But I do think that no matter how disconnected you feel, there is, I have like a little piece of makeup here. No matter how disconnected you feel, there's a little fire inside of you, your intuition, and that's never going to go away. And I'm saying never. It is never going to go away, and you're going to feel drawn to a space that's safe. Like I promise you, you're going to feel drawn to a safe space. So get in that safe space. Just get yourself there. You know what I mean? Another thing I want to talk about is accepting yourself. So I have this tendency to say, I'm so weird or I'm so crazy all the time. And when you are constantly telling yourself you're weird and crazy, let me tell you, it is definitely harder to get out and go in public, because even if you're like joking, like I would say it seriously, I would say it joking. Even if you're joking, like if you feel like you're crazy, how are you going to feel like being around other people? You're going to feel weird and crazy. So like, I remember this was like 10 years ago. One of my very first therapists told me, I need to watch the way I talk to myself, watch my language. And I just thought, actually, my mentor, Lisa, is on Facebook, and she also gave me told me, hey, straight up, like the way I talk to myself is like not going to work last year. So it's like been this long journey for me. And now I'm like, I can't tell myself every day, you're so crazy, you're so weird. That's a common thought that you almost start to identify with, and you identify with like the uniqueness of being like, I'm so weird, I'm so different. You identify with the uniqueness because your mind is just trying to find positives in the situation that you're creating for yourself. But the fact of the matter is that you're not weird and you're not crazy. We live in this, I mean, I live in California, I live in USA. We live in this society where a lot of things are really stressful at this point. And we give ourselves such a hard time and call ourselves weird for just feeling like every single other person. We think we're so unique, but there are so many people experiencing these things, and you're just absolutely, absolutely not alone in it. For example, I live in San Diego, California, and driving around here is real stressful. Like, there's traffic almost everywhere. And even like in the city, and I don't even like to go downtown, it's so trafficy. And I called myself so weird every day for like not wanting to drive in that traffic. I would be like, you're so crazy. Like, I wish that you could like get over this anxiety so you could like freaking live, talking to myself like this. And then I'll talk to someone else and they'll be like, oh yeah, driving here is so stressful. Like, I hate it. And it's like, it is. Like, I gave myself such a hard time for not wanting to drive. But I mean, I still did drive. I gave myself such a hard time for not wanting to drive. And it's like, everybody thinks it's stressful and hard. So it's like, why was I telling myself I was crazy for so long? And then even now I'll catch myself saying, you're so crazy. And so like, I don't know if any of you have that experience where you're just like, I'm such a weirdo, but like that has to stop, because you deserve to live a happy life and feel supported wherever you go, like in public, literally wherever you go. So as far as saying I'm so weird and I'm so crazy, it was so automatic for me that it was only something that I could react to after. And so what I would try to do is I would try to tell myself that like everybody has this a lot of people have this problem. You're totally normal. Like anybody in your situation would be stressed out. You're okay. You're safe. So that was a really big one for me, feeling safe, and then accepting myself, just accepting that and not calling myself crazy or weird for it anymore. And then another last really powerful thing that I think would be freaking amazing for you to do as far as your healing from having anxiety about going in public would be to remember from your childhood, from your teenage years, stressful situations that happen in public. So, for example, when I was a kid, my stepdad used to act so weird in public, like seriously, so weird. And I was always like so embarrassed, and it's just like such a lack of concern for my safety. And thinking of these things also, it just helps you to like make more sense of it. So because when I was a kid, like my guardians like did not try to keep me safe in public, and a whole lot of different weird things happened, it definitely stems from that. The idea is that when you're feeling like super scared of going out, like just like I can't do this, like I really wanted to at like 10 in the morning on Wednesday, but now it's like Saturday and I'm about to go, like I can't do it. If you remember like all of these things that happened to you, it helps you to feel that feeling of feeling like less crazy and less weird. And like honestly, tracing things back is so healing. That's like the basis of shadow work. The basis of shadow work is to remember a time when you were a kid that same feeling occurred, and see what your child self needed at that time. Did your child self need someone to be like, you're safe, you're good? Did your child self need someone to like hug you? What did your child self need, and give that to you now? And that is like crossing timelines. That's like jumping dimensions. That's so healing. You have no idea. So when you start to feel that fear, ask yourself, when is one of the first times I felt like this, or when is the time that I felt like this? Go back to that moment and give yourself the love that you didn't have in that moment. Give yourself the comfort that you didn't have in that moment. So exactly, the awareness. So the awareness of it, with the acceptance of it, with the simultaneously you working on cultivating safe spaces within yourself and others, awareness, acceptance, and then the moving forward into a safe space is really like where all the healing happens with agoraphobia. And then I do want to say that with something like agoraphobia, give yourself a break with it, because I will tell you right now, so many people in America deal with this. So many people. Way more people than you could ever imagine. So give yourself a little break with feeling stress. Like, I know that it can be like the stress compounds itself, and like once you feel the fear, it's like right to that base limiting belief. Like you feel the fear and it's like right to that I'm a failure, right to that I'm unlovable. And then like all of the examples of like your boyfriends and your girlfriends like being like, why are you like this? Why do you have anxiety like this? Can't you just blah, blah, blah? Can't you blah, blah, blah? All that comes up. It's like, can we interrupt it briefly just to say that like so many people deal with this. So many people deal with this. You're not crazy. You're not a weirdo. You're just not. Like, you're so much more powerful, healthy than you could ever imagine. So that is what I wanted to go live about today. I hope that with this, you can at least start thinking about ways to cultivate safety within yourself. And like I said, root chakra work is fantastic for safety. My mentor said this to me like a few months ago. I love it. If you can feel safe within, you can feel safe anywhere. And it's so true. So awareness of when this first started, acceptance that you're not crazy, and then cultivating that safe space. So I love you guys. I am going to go live tomorrow. I think I'm going to talk about how to tell the difference between what you're thinking and whether it's like toxic programming or like real logical thoughts, how to tell the difference between that. So that's what we'll talk about tomorrow. And I love you guys. Have a wonderful Friday.